Let's get to our next guest. We know that there's a problem with financial literacy, whether it's us, whether it's the generation before us, or whether it's the generation of future movers and shakers. Do we really understand our finances and the implications of taking them seriously or not? I think the answer is no. But let's find out what our expert guest will say. Pam Leonage is the co-founder of MoneyPrep. She's got a 25-year background in financial services. She's also a mother of 4. Pam's company has just developed a new video game app to teach kids about money management. You can find it in the App Store, Google Play, anywhere you get your apps. It's called MoneyPrep. Pam's making her Real Talk debut this morning. It's so good to have you here. Thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the time.
When we were teeing up your appearance here on the show about an hour and a half ago, I said she's got a 25-year background in financial services, and then I said, and maybe more significantly, she's a mother of 4. It seems to me like I'm picturing Lady Justice right now with the 2 scales, and when it comes to financial literacy, you care for more than one reason.
Yes, that's exactly it. My company is kind of the convergence of both of those worlds, being a lender and a retail banker, and also being a parent and raising financially responsible kids.
So how did you, as a mom, out of the gates, decide to or have an influence on how your kids understand finances?
Yep, I have an influence on them primarily because of my lending background. So when I was in the banking system and saw clients coming in all the time from the 18 to 25-year-old age range, the common situation that I was fixing for them stemmed from a mismanagement of money. So it all comes back down to budgeting and understanding those basics of how to manage your finances, how to navigate them, understanding credit and how it works. And if kids don't learn that early enough, then it can become a problem for them as young adults. So that's kind of the genesis of what we're building. And as a parent, why I started teaching my kids from early ages of 5 and 6, because that's the time to start when they have the longest runway to really form those smart money habits.
Can we talk about, because I know that, I mean, we know for a fact that there are, parents that are expecting that are members of our audience. There are parents of young kids. There are parents of teens, of course. And then, of course, the lessons in financial literacy can continue and many times often begin in our adult years. But can we do like a 0 to 6, a 6 to 12, a 12 to 18 kind of journey through what you think need to be the pillars of financial literacy?
Yep. The basics of starting from the beginning are framing discussions about money around where the kids are at. So in elementary, the age 5 to 12-ish, you ask a young child, what is money for? Their answer is always, you need it to buy stuff, right? So their framework around money is around transactions and what you need it for. So that's what I would say for that age range is the place to start when you're opening the discussions, talking to them about how to make the right decision. What do you need to think about? How do you make the choice? What habits do you really want to start instilling early so that they get to a point where they can start making some independent choices? And making mistakes is totally fine. That's part of learning, and it's probably better to make fiscal mistakes when you're, in elementary than when you're in a young adult. So non-catastrophic failures. So that's what I would start with when they're young. And as they grow older, then you can get a little bit deeper into the meaning of money and how to navigate and the obligations surrounding it. Like you get into the teen years and now they're starting to think about independent living and what do I need for school. And so at that point, you can get a little bit deeper and talk to them more about credit cards, how to manage them, why they're important. Because, I remember going into university and not having any discussions in the house, in the family home about money and how to manage it. And there's tables of credit card applications, right? And these young kids are coming in there, or the 18, 19, and they're picking up these credit card applications, not understanding really how to use them and how to manage them properly. And then that can lead to, future consequences for them, borrowing power and things like that if they start messing up. So if you can introduce those kind of management techniques and skills a little bit earlier than, just a webinar or a few exercises in high school, then they're going to be much better off when they actually enter the real world.
The idea around credit cards, you're so right. I mean, people apply. In university, there are all these hooks, where they'll get you, and all of a sudden, for somebody, it might be a credit card debt of $750 or $1,000 that it becomes this pervasive debt that hangs over their head. For some people, it might be $15,000 or $20,000, and it becomes something that they can't manage. So then, in some circumstances, and I wanted to circle back to a word you used. You said, you've been in the lending industry. We oftentimes hear that phrase, the predatory lenders.
Yeah.
Right? These high interest lenders. And there's been some interesting developments with regards to different levels of government and how they're approaching that and how the general public feels about the so-called predatory lenders. Does the lending industry, let's acknowledge that without lending, most people wouldn't be able to even consider have a house or have a car or whatever, start up a business, quite frankly. So does the lending industry have a bad name, or does the lending industry, maybe in a more focused question, have an obligation to help educate their customers?
Absolutely. I think they do have a corporate responsibility to help steer their clients in the right direction. But the idea of lending being a bad word is it's a difficult one, because really, like you said, it's not a bad word. It's something that almost everybody uses in their life to get to their big goals. So it's just a matter of framing it differently so that people don't view lending or their lender or whoever they're going to borrow from as the big bad the big bad lender. That's who's going to help me get to where I want to go.
When you talk about how to reach kids, and obviously I think that almost with anything in life, there will be obvious exceptions, but like if you learn something young, I think of people that can speak a second or a third or a fifth language, and you go, how do you possibly do that? They go, well, I started young, and it's just like not a thing. Kids can just do that. There's this ability, the way that their minds work. Now, when you were putting together MoneyPrep, and people can check it out, by the way, at MoneyPrep.com, and again, you can find this. It's like a video game take on understanding money. You can download it on the App Store, get it on Google Play. What did you tap into with regards to the psyche of the average kid, or how a kid's mind works to drive home the most important points?
Yep. This comes from also being a parent and being in the classroom. So when I started the program, I did it workshop based. So I was going into the classrooms. I was doing a lot of kind of fun activities and games with the kids in person. And, we kind of quickly realized that if I want to reach thousands of kids out there, there's only one of me, and carbon copying isn't an option right now. So let's go digital. And the idea was, we know that kids love tech. We know that they love to learn that way. So we're meeting them where they're at. And we took the concepts of what we wanted to teach and the gamified versions of that I was doing in the class, and we put it online. And so it's getting a lot of traction, because that's the way kids are learning. And especially with the boom of online learning now. You might have heard of this thing called the pandemic, and teachers and parents are all looking for resources online and digitally. So that has also helped us to connect with those kids in a way that they enjoy and in a way that they can actually gain some valuable knowledge from.
Pam, it's interesting. You talk to different people about their upbringings, and some people would have no idea how much mom or dad makes, no idea what parents paid for the house, no idea what they owe on the house, no idea what their credit card balance is. And then other families, there's, probably the mail gets opened from Visa and it goes on the table and everybody can see where the money is or how deep the debt is or whatever the case is. Do you have a personal opinion, or is it family by family on talking about? I would imagine a lot of parents want to sort of insulate their children from feeling any sort of stress. That's probably one of the biggest reasons why you don't talk about money in front of the kids. Right. But is that an 100%. Old thing? Is that old school thinking?
Well, that's definitely a generational thing. I mean, I don't know about you, Ryan, but I didn't grow up with it being talked about in the house.
Not really.
And I know my parents didn't grow up with it being talked about in the house. But I think that is changing. And I think it needs to change. You know, it's okay to share the good, the bad, and the ugly of your situation so that the kids can learn from it. Because sometimes the insulation doesn't help. You know, I understand you don't want to put any worries or extra kind of stress on your kid. And that's totally, I understand and respect that. I think that there's a balance there. So you can still be honest and open with them, where you might not have to tell them exactly, you know, your annual income and everything like that, if you don't feel comfortable with it. But if you do, go ahead. You know, the idea of understanding, hey, everybody needs to budget, no matter how much money you're making. We all have limits and we all have obligations, and that need to get taken care of. And I think sharing that with kids helps them in their own adult life when they're setting up their own, money portfolios and whatnot.
How do you approach as a mom and as someone who obviously advises others on their finances too and understands it? How do you approach like the early stage stuff of, you know, whether it's the piggy bank or maybe a weekly allowance or chores that you have to do? I mean, these are obviously all opportunities to instill good habits or a solid understanding of finances with young people.
Yeah, there's lots of different approaches to allowance. There's one point of view that says if you set it up so that they do a certain amount of chores to get their pay at the end of the week, that's kind of the salary model. If there's another idea out there where you create a value for a job and just post it on the board, and when a kid feels like they need money and they're short, or they want to go to the movie theater, or they want to do something else that they need extra money for, then they'll look for that work. And so that kind of is the entrepreneurial way of doing an allowance. So it depends family to family how you want to do it, or if you want to do it. You know, the big idea in terms of opening the conversation for kids is just sharing your decision making, sharing why you're doing your choices, how you're making your choices, and that for the allowance age kids will, regardless of whether you give them an allowance, will set them up for creating those good habits.
Love it. I know that a lot of people are going to be really grateful for this, Pam, because obviously everybody wants the best for their kids.
Yeah, for
sure. And I think a lot of us have, people have attended the school of hard knocks when it comes to getting finances back on track, right? For a lot of people, you get to the point where whatever step you've got to take, for a lot of people, they'll look back and say, gosh, I wish as I was on the concourse at the hockey game applying for a credit card because I got a free t-shirt. This is personal testimony.
Yeah.
I wish somebody would have talked to me about how there's a better interest rate out there than 28%.
That's right.
And how going for dinners you can't afford when you're 19 years old isn't always the best play. The game is Money Prep. You can find it at moneyprep.com. Helps kids create and build strong money habits. Available for ages 5 through 12. Developed by Pam, who's joined us, Pam Leonage, and grateful for it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate the time, Ryan. Great to talk to you.
You bet. You as well, Pam. Thanks so much. I was looking and I knew that our live chat would be going off, and it is, and it's great because everybody's, people are in all different situations, coming at this from different scenarios. I mean, not to be rude. Why am I saying it's rude? It's so hardwired in you not to talk about money, not to be rude, but no, it's a fact. And we know this because of our question of the week. Put out by our research and strategy partners at Y Station. You answer a few questions for us, just demographically. Give us a sense of where you're at, like physically where you're at. Are you in Alberta? Are you in Ontario? Are you an international audience member? And a lot of you divulge to us what your family or your household income is. And we know that there are people that watch this show or listen to the podcast every day that earn a modest income. And we know that there are people that enjoy a more significant, a more robust income, you might say. And so all these conversations will land differently with people, right? Tracy says, I got into debt because of credit cards. Credit cards I started using that I applied for in line at university registration. That's where they'll get you. It's where they hook you. And then all of a sudden it's 28% and it's $1,000 and you can't pay it and you can't make the minimum monthly payment. Then you hear about balance transfers, and then you balance transfer, or you hear about, Money Mart. You see the commercial, everybody piling into the Jeep. We're going to Money Mart. And then you end up, we're going to get sued by Money Mart right now, but it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. There's a lot of you get I'm not trying to pigeonhole the problem here, but you get people oftentimes, single parents or people that find themselves in a situation where they've lost their jobs and they need a little cash infusion to keep the lights on, literally. And then you've got these interest obligations that you're never going to be able to get out of. And governments have taken steps to legislate against these predatory lenders because they're so damaging to people. I think right now it makes sense for us to read some of these comments, right? Like Patrick says, I focus on teaching teenagers about awareness, like habits and how marketing works and what credit is. Patrick says you need awareness before you can control yourself. I've been teaching Wyatt about a certain fast food restaurant that puts toys in the boxes that they give kids. And I said, Wyatt, they're trying to trick you. I said, they're trying to trick you into wanting to go get a toy, but they know that the toy's just going to break and the food's not healthy for you. And every time we go past one of those restaurants and their iconic sign, he says, Dad, there they are. They want to trick me. Aww. I say, they do, kiddo. They do. They want to trick you.
I just find it I get such a sense of relief to know that was so many other folks' experiences where we did not talk about money. It was rude, very rude to know what my folks made annually.
Did you ever dig around to try to figure it out?
No, I didn't want to get in trouble. No way, Jose. We didn't get allowances. So it's interesting to hear that model of either doing a salary or doing, project-based.
Mm-hmm. That was my parents. That resonated with me.
Yeah.
And it was funny when Pam brought up the example. She said, so if you want to go to the movies, that was specifically what it was for me. And so my mom, would set up those types of jobs. And I was always grateful for it. It was kind of the first real opportunity that we had to, I remember as a kid, if you're 12 or 13 or 14, to be able to get $20 was a big deal.
Big deal.
But it would be, you'd have to dust the upstairs and the main level. You'd have to vacuum all the carpets and wash all the floors. And then that in exchange would be $20. And I remember once my parents extending me credit. Ooh. I remember specifically what it was. I don't remember what I needed the money for, but I remember that it was specifically $60. So it must have been something cool. It's probably new basketball shoes or something like that. And I remember my mom saying, okay, that's like 3 full, dusting, vacuuming floor jobs. That's 3 full ones. And she had me sign. It was like a note card, and we signed it. And then the next time I went to the well for $20, she was like, nope. You owe us 3 of these.
Right.
So work it off. And then once you work those 3 off, then you can borrow again, or you can go earn again that $20. That's very basic stuff, but it's not basic in the sense that it forms your understanding of there's not just this endless tap you turn on if you need 20 or 40 or $60, right? Jillian touching on religions where you're not technically allowed to borrow money or pay interest, which is true. Yeah, it's true.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Friends of ours, it's their scenario, right? It's why they're not currently homeowners. Scott says our idea these days, how much debt is okay, is so different than 40 years ago. Our reliance on debt to fuel our lives is extremely dangerous. That from Scott. Meantime, Craig says, I'll catch up. By the way, everyone, Craig's got to go to work. Signing off our live chat says, I guess I'll catch up on Eat Your Words after my meeting. I can't wait for that. Well, Craig, this one's for you.